Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. And a special thanks to media people. We know that you are extremely busy during this period, given that it's just a few days before elections. So we were here just a couple of months ago in November launching this campaign, and today we're going to give you an update. And I'll be facilitating the program on behalf of Defend Our Democracy. But firstly, I'd like to hand over to Reverend Mawson Kla, who's the chair of Defend Our Democracy's National Committee. He'll share a short introductory message, and then we'll proceed to the rest of the program.
Good morning, everyone. We just want to welcome everyone at this press briefing of the Defend Our Democracy. My name, as has been said, is Reverend Mawson Kla. Current chairperson of the Defend Our Democracy campaign. I want to welcome everyone here, including sectoral representatives, partner organizations, activists, and members of the media. Today, our briefing will share an overview about our plans for Election Day. At the end of November last year, at this very venue, we launched the Election Watch. This is an observer campaign by civil society. Today, we want to share an update on its work over the last 6 months and what this campaign is expected to do on Election Day. We will also be making a final appeal for all stakeholders in this election to ensure its integrity and its success. Defend Our Democracy is one of 150 observer missions accredited by the IEC across the country, specifically for the 2024 general elections. Through the Election Watch campaign and other initiatives, this year we'll see one of the largest civil society contingents out in the field on Election Day, working in a coordinated manner with a presence in all 9 provinces. The election campaign, therefore, has been not just a milestone for our organization, but it is an indicator of what is possible through better coordination and collaboration between civil society organizations in building capacity for grassroots democracy volunteerism. This spirit of volunteerism and citizen activism must be saluted and kindled into the future. This election has been preceded by several constitutional court cases and the implementation of a revised electoral system. These issues test the tenacity of our democracy, but are also indicators of its vibrance. As with any elections, the week ahead will see South Africa's electorate contemplating the future trajectory of the society we live in, and at the same time critically reviewing its past. We will not instruct anyone about the conclusion they need to come to on their ballots as they reflect upon the state of the country. However, we appeal to all South Africans to, in their contemplation, note that the country has weathered some pretty tough political moments before, and that as contested as these elections are, our country has the capability to host them successfully. Various factors have made elections successful in the last 30 years. These, among others, include the maturity of our political community and sectoral leaders, the upholding of the rule of law, a professional, non-partisan, and ethical electoral management body, and a common societal commitment to making sure that elections run smoothly, irrespective of political differences. In the last few days, these elements must come together once again. 2024 calls for the country to display the same maturity and commitment to a most fundamental aspect of democracy, as it has shown through the past 3 decades. For Defend Our Democracy, the Election Watch campaign has importantly highlighted the politically non-partisan role that civil society can play in ensuring the success and integrity of elections. It is something that we hope to build on the 2026 and 2029 elections.
Thanks for that, Reverend. We are now going to have Justice Johan Kriegler, and as we were sitting here, I just did a quick search to find out Justice Kriegler's age. And I know it's not really tradition to mention people's age, but at the grand old age of 91, I think it's something that we should celebrate. And Justice Kriegler was one of the founders of our current election management body. So he served on the first IEC that was set up, and later on formally established it as the IEC that we know it today. So I think there's just a history of pioneering efforts around electoral management systems. So Justice Kriegler, over to you.
Thank you, Zakira. Imagine for yourselves having your main achievement, having survived beyond your sell-by date. If that doesn't make you sufficiently humble, what will? So, having been humiliated enough, let me tell you, my fundamental sentiment this morning is pride. Pride in my country and pride in our society. Of all of the emergent democracies in which I have worked, this one is unique in its successful holding of a succession of elections with no violence, no tribulation, no serious court cases, a civil society that accepts the rule of law and the rule of discipline of government through the people, by the people. Today, in fact, this very meeting is an element, evidence of the success of our society in achieving what was quite miraculous a transition. After hundreds of years of colonialism and neo-colonialism, a settlement which surprised the world, and then an election that was even more of a surprise to the world. We did it then, we've done it time and again since then, and next week, I have not the slightest doubt we are going to have successful, peaceful elections. I say that because of the words we heard from our chair a few minutes ago. Our civil society has matured tremendously. There is a general acceptance of the discipline of democracy. Winners win, they don't win all, but they win control. Losers lose, they don't lose all, they retain their power as an opposition in the political spectrum. At the moment, it's a little more difficult than it has ever been in the past, because we have a multitude of competitors. We also have a multitude of losers, therefore. There are some 14,000 candidates looking for office, and I think only some 1,800 of them can actually hope to be elected anywhere. That means that there will be many, many disgruntled losers, and yet I have no fear that we will have serious disruption in this country. We have accepted the judgments of our courts. We have accepted the rulings of our Electoral Commission. We have a competent, more than competent Electoral Commission. We have a competent and more than competent judiciary. We have a competent and more than competent electorate. All will go well next week, thanks inter alia to the people such as the Defend Our Democracy campaign, active citizens who work for the benefit of all of us. I came here this morning to salute Defend Our Democracy campaign, and through them all of those who have worked so tirelessly to make this election a success. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Justice. And just to let you know, our eldest observer for this election process is 88 years old. So thank you to those who continue giving their time to activism and democracy well into their old age. I would now want to introduce Nomasonto Magwaza, who came to the DOD's offices on the 9th of January this year. So you can imagine in just the space of a few months, as the campaign manager for Defend Our Democracy's Election Watch campaign, Nomasonto has had to really pull miracles to ensure that this campaign takes off. So Nomasonto, over to you, and Nomasonto will be taking us through our state of readiness for elections.
Thank you so much, Zakira. Let me also greet everyone in the room and also convey my gratitude as well. Before I go into our report, I just want to firstly appreciate and convey our gratitude as the DOD, also as Election Watch campaign, to all the organizations who have really rallied around with us, who have supported us, who are still supporting us towards May 29th. We are truly grateful to have seen such commitment from individuals and also from civil society organizations who are part of the campaign. So I have a bit of a flu, but I'm hopeful that my voice is audible enough. Mm-hmm. So just to start with the campaign itself, the campaign, when it started and it was launched, it aimed at mobilizing civil society organizations, to pronounce on the integrity of the 2024 national elections. This was going to happen through observation on the day of election and ensuring that we do have a presence of observers at the voting station countrywide. It also aims at ensuring that the elections are a success by educating and mobilizing South Africans, because it's important for citizens to understand that they actually are able to participate in this democracy. And I think Election Watch has been very effective in ensuring that that message is promoted. One of the key objectives of the campaign is really to amplify transparency of the electoral process. This is through the presence of the observers at the voting stations. And also we're wanting to ensure that post-elections, we build a very strong program on observer volunteering to ensure that this process of transparency and deepening issues of active citizenship is ensured in the long process. Taking us back to the timelines of the campaign itself, is that the conference on the July 22 took that resolution that the campaign is to be launched, and the campaign planning, the planning happened in 2023, from 2023, and was launched in November 2023. So we started the mapping December, and in January we also worked on provincial visits we went around the 9 provinces to ensure that in each of every province we do send the message and also articulate the aims and objectives of the campaign. The roadshows were really meant to ensure that we have enough organizations, civil society organizations that are supporting us, and also ensuring that individuals and all those who are interested in observing are aware of what we are doing. We also, in support of the campaign itself, we also worked on the tech issues. We have developed an app that will be used on the day of election to capture the report by the observers. So the work of development of that app happened in the process of January. And also in January, we consolidated the team. The appointments happened in January. We all came in January to ensure the work. In February, it was the provincial visits, KZN, Gauteng, and all that, and we did get support from our partner organizations who were in support of the work we're doing. We also recognized and identified organizations that would be, even post-elections, have a sense of collaborating with DOD on taking forward whatever that emerges out of this election. We did a lot of pamphleteering and leafleteering to ensure that the message gets across. So at this point is to check where we are and what our numbers are, our statistics. We have to date mobilized and submitted over 1,208 election observers to the IEC for accreditation. 689 have been accredited, and we are awaiting further accreditation from IEC. We're hopeful that it will happen this week. And also, as indicated, the provincial visits were conducted amongst the provinces. So through those provincial visits, we've reached about 819 participants, which is it was inclusive of organizations and individuals who attended those roadshows that we had, and a distribution of pamphlets at a quite intense way. So we've also had approximately 60 media engagements. We've been supported greatly by the media. We're grateful. And we also have now 4 billboards in 4 provinces, which was also a great success for Election Watch. Currently, in terms of organizations, we have 86 organizations across provinces. The organizations have volunteers that come with them, hence the number 1,208. So we've currently conducted around 4 training sessions online in preparation for the 29th. So these sessions are 2-hour sessions where we prepare observers for election day. Basically, it's taking them through the steps in terms of what they are meant to do when they get to the voting stations, and what time they should be there, and what kind of reporting that should be happening on that day. So this is our provincial breakdown in terms of the numbers. We have, Gauteng has the biggest number, and then we have Northwest, and then we have KZN, Mpumalanga, Western Cape 105, Limpopo 52, Northern Cape 11, Eastern Cape 41, and Free State 110. We have developed an app that we will be using to capture the observer reports. The aim of this is that to ensure that the information and pictures and incidents that will be happening on the day are well documented and recorded so that in our systems. And to that effect, we also have a data team that will be supporting us in terms of analyzing that information and also making sense of it on that day. So this will help us to ensure that we get quite a broad perspective in terms of what the thinking is and what the situation is, but also what the numbers are saying, but over and above to get the correct report of the results. In the process of training, we've also developed a manual for our observers, which we're sharing with them online. This is basically the steps on how they would be conducting themselves on the day, but this is done in collaboration with IEC protocol and processes. So for us as Election Watch, in preparation for election day, we will be setting up a operations center at our own offices. So the operations center will have data capturers. We will also have our analysts there. So as the observers go into the stations in the mornings, they will be logging on their app. And once they start logging in on the app, we will have a dashboard that will be reflecting the presence of our observers in the different stations across the country. We will then be picking up in terms of incidents what is taking place, and as they bring in the reports of the day. We have a team of volunteers who will be there as well in terms of the other processes to ensure that we are ensuring the effectiveness of the day. For instance, if there are issues with relates to IEC, there are complications, we are well prepared to ensure that we have contacts and everything is ready to ensure that we contact them, and we are assisting our observers on the day. And we've communicated with IEC to this effect. We are ready. So we have what you call support process. Our support process will ensure that in our offices we have a team of people who are ensuring that there is taking care of observers on the day, and that there is also ensuring that all our observers who are being deployed are, complying with the IEC Code of Conduct. So our app on point 3 is that it will just once you log on the app, it will geolocate where you are, and so you will know exactly who is where and observing on that day, as long as you have logged in. So I'm just gonna quickly go through some of the parameters of the day in terms of what the reporting will look like on the app. So for us, if you are an observer, you will receive a link that will enable you to download the app on your phone, if you are using a smartphone. And once that is downloaded, it will then enable you to go into the reporting segment once you've captured your report. The things that we will be looking for on the day, in an incident report, we were looking at things like what were there violence at the station? Were there any issues of concern? Were registered voters allowed to vote? Were there issues where people were turned back? Was IEC officials intimidating you, or and that information will be captured in terms of yes or no. In general, if the answers are no, we would know that everything went well. And then we will also have the voting station operational issues, where we'll be asking in terms of the processes and preparations of the voting stations. People will have an opportunity to check if the preparedness of the voting station, and also ensuring that what needed to be prepared for voting is there. For instance, the ballot papers, are they on time and are they captured on time? I'm running out of time, but basically, lastly, on the disruption report, it's just also a continuation of the different segment of what are the questions we'll be looking like for the observers and capturing them on that day. Yeah. And also that will be for vote counting, which will be very important for us, that once the voting is done, we will have to be present on the counting and what observers should look out for, you know. So were the party agents watching, counting ballots, were there any disputes on the day, you know, were there any unstamped ballots that were found, you know, questions such as that, yeah. So these will ensure that once you're done, you will save the report and then you will submit. We will then know, I think I've come to the end, and this is one of our billboards. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for that, Sonto. We are unable to go through all of the questions that we'll be asking, so you will see either on your seat or if you speak to Andres, our communications officer, you'll get a flyer that lists all of the questions that observers will be looking out for. And those questions have been sourced from the IEC, its previous handbook, and it comes through the kind of quality checks from previous observers or observation experiences that inform it as well. Before we call on our next speaker, I think it's important to note just in terms of the standards that we're using. So every observer that will be reporting via the app will have a unique code that is sent through to them specifically. So not everyone can access the app. It's not available, you know, on Play Store where you can just download it and randomly report on it. There's a very secure process so that, you know, it's not, we know the observers who are out on field, and those are the specific people that will be reporting via the app. I'd now like to call on Andres Sibagnoni, who's the communications officer at Defend Our Democracy, and he's going to be reading a statement that has been endorsed by a number of organizations, as well as, you know, different sectors. You'll see their business, labor, etc. And this year just reflects our call to political parties, members of the public, members of the media, as well as just, you know, the ordinary voter before elections. Andres?
Thank you, Zakira, and good morning, colleagues. I'll be reading the statement, and it's called Call to Uphold the Integrity of the Elections. We, the undersigned organizations, reaffirm our unwavering commitment to free, fair, and peaceful national and provincial elections next week in South Africa. We call on all sectors of society to pledge to uphold the integrity of the upcoming elections. In particular, we appeal to independent candidates and political parties, whether contesting or not, to help ensure the success of the elections. This can be done by ensuring that their members abide by the rule of law, including recent judgments by the Constitutional Court. Parties and independent candidates who are contesting must adhere to the Electoral Code of Conduct. The code prohibits violence and intimidation and prevents signatories from abusing position of power or privilege to influence the electoral outcomes. Elections are meant to be fiercely contested. However, this should not result in spurious dispute over the electoral result simply to cause chaos or to further political party agendas. we demand that political parties and independent candidates at all times put the interest of the country first. Our appeal to South African electorate is to go out and vote. Employers must give employees who are working on the election day time off to exercise their democratic right to vote. We acknowledge the numbers of South Africans living abroad who cast their ballots several days ago. We look forward to seeing large numbers of voters participating in several days ago. We look forward to seeing the large numbers of voters participating in special voting process on the 27th and 28th of May. We also hope to see all other registered voters going to the over 23,000 voting stations set up across the country on the 29th May 2024. Community leaders and organizers have an important role to play in this period. Voters must no way be prevented from casting their ballots due to protest action that some may be planning. We understand the rights of the communities to raise their issues, but at the same time, communities must stand together to ensure that the right to vote is respected. The Independent Electoral Commission, IEC of South Africa, should be alerted if voting is disrupted. We thank all South Africans who have responded to the call to become election observers. They give meaning to our call for the 30th year of freedom to be marked as the year of active citizen. Through the Election Watch Observer campaign, we recommit to conducting electoral oversight work that is political non-partisan. We will continue building our collective capacity to observe elections leading to the 2026 and 2029 elections. Members of the public who may not have registered as observers are encouraged to use social media to share their voting day experiences. They must also use #ElectoralWatch in posts so that we can track their reports. Beware of fake news, misinformation, and any potential attempts to incite violence. Our call to members of the media is to continue playing the important role of ensuring accurate and fair coverage of elections. The IEC has successfully run 6 provincial and national government elections since 1994. We appeal to the IEC to make certain that the integrity and professionalism that they have consistently demonstrated be maintained. As the country marks 30 years of democracy, we acknowledge the strides made in transforming South Africa from its apartheid past to a constitutional democracy. We must, however, also recognize that our democracy has been eroded through state capture, corruption, and malfeasance. Voters will now once again have the ultimate say in the future trajectory of the country. This determination could potentially result in an eventuality where coalition governance, this determination could potentially result in an eventuality where coalition governance at national or provincial levels may need to be considered. If this is the case, coalition must be built on policies and principles that will take the country forward. It cannot simply be about political parties squabbling for positions, as has been demonstrated in several municipalities over the last few years. We demand that all coalition agreements be made publicly available so that political parties who may be coming into office can be held to account on what they agreed to. By this time next week, South African voters would hopefully have joined billions of people across some 60 countries participating in some form of elections in 2024. Our country has time and again demonstrated its ability to successfully navigate critical political moments. This time round, the moments call for all of us, even as we express different political choices, unite on a common commitment, ensuring the success of the 2024 elections. I'm now going to read the names of the organizations that have endorsed the statement. Active Citizens Movement, Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, Owl Social Economic Research Institute, NPC, Business Unity South Africa, Campaign for Free Expression, Cape Town Ulama Board, Center for Good Governance and Social Justice, NPC, Council of African Independent Churches, Defend Our Democracy, Direct Democracy South Africa, Educators for Humanity, Freedom Under Law, Fridays for Future South Africa, Inclusive Society Institute, Institute of Security Studies, isiZiba Community-Based Organizations of South Africa, Johannesburg Against Injustice, Krishna Ribalal Foundation, Legal Resource Center, Linali, Maengere Film Productions, Mediate Works, Moral Regeneration Movement, Muslim Student Association Union, Msunduzi Association of Residents, Ratepayers and Civics, Ntwame Community Development Forum, Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, Privilege Foundation, Progressive Tamil Movement, Public Affairs Research Institute, Right to Know Campaign, Rivonia Cycle, Sham Al-Islam Masjid, South African First Forum, South African Conversation, South African Federation of Trade Unions, South African Hindu Mahasabha, South African Informal Traders Forum, So We Vote, Support Group for Survivors of State Capture at the South African Revenue Service, Synergy Works Consulting, Teddy Bear Foundation for Abused Children, Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation, the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa, the Muslim Youth Movement of South Africa, the Peace Center, Vulindlela Youth Development Institute, South Africa, Wattville Community Action Network, Women's Assembly Movement, YMCA South Africa, Stand Up South Africa, Unite Behind, 350 Africa Organization. Solidarity, Masibuyisane, Congress of Business and Economics, Strategic Dialogue Group, Hashtag Youth Arise, Dialogue for Action, Corruption Watch, Sinovation Solutions, Institute for African Alternatives, People's Keep Fit Club, Shito Rio Carretedo Institute, and FEDUSA. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Andres. And we are keeping the endorsement system open. So individuals and organizations leading up to elections are welcome to continue endorsing this statement. And it's important because I think it shows a broad societal need or call for elections to be free, fair, and to be held with integrity. We're now going to get messages of support from a range of different organizations and sectors. I'm going to ask speakers to please keep to the 2-minute limit, just so that we can go through this quickly. We first have Lydia Cindy from the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa.
Thank you very much, Zakia. Good morning, colleagues and participants and the media. I'm so glad that we are here today. I'm very I love my country, as the judge have said. We are here to encourage. We are thankful that this is my boss, Tis from TISA. He told me what to say. I'm joking. We are the Evangelical Alliance of South Africa. We are a conglomeration of churches, evangelical churches in South Africa. And I'm glad to be here as a church, representing the church, just to say we believe in our country and we love our country. So we encourage you, we're thankful for defend our democracy, for the work that you've done. And we thank you also for allowing us to be here. And we also know that this is being done not free of charge. People are funding it. So I'm here to encourage our citizens, ourselves, the church, the civil society movements, to go and vote. It is important for us to do that because our democracy was bought by lives and blood of people who laid it for us, for our freedom. So it will be an indictment on us if we do not go and cast a vote. I was saying to Reverend Ross that even when you are angry about what the situation in the country is, that is more the reason for us to go to the voting poll and stand there until you know who or what to vote for. And we're also asking our leaders, those that will be elected, as the judge says, they will be losers, but those that will be elected and win, the outcome favors them. We're asking and pleading as the citizens of this country for ethical leadership. We're asking, like our forefathers who came and set us where we are today, to make sure that you are there in Parliament, not for your selfish own reasons, but for the reasons of these people, the people of South Africa, the millions who have voted for you. And we're also asking also that our citizens, because democracy defense starts from us at the local level. Citizens are not, we are not guilty of wanting our democracy to go down. So we're asking that even to stop paying the bribes, to stop paying, you know, the paying at the back when you're at the shop or at the retail store. They tell you, the teller tells you, I can give you this much and you can pay less. That's where the corruption starts. And we as citizens have to very fully aware and be intentional of our activity because all of us are building this country. I was a nurse. I'm a nurse by profession. I always tell the teachers and the nurses not to steal stationery because we earn a salary. And we're saying that for every citizen of this country, that for us to sustain the democracy, we are responsible. It's not only our political leaders. And lastly, we also say after the elections, because life starts, we challenge the churches to go to the council meetings, to go to the legislature, to sit there and to hold our leaders accountable. The churches, the lawyers, the professionals who are in every civil society. It is incumbent on us to teach our communities to go and sit in those council meetings, in those legislature meetings, and ask them what happens to this budget that was allocated for this project in such and such a time, and say, take me there. I want to see this 10-kilometer road that was said 100 million was spent on it. I want to see it and who was appointed. So it is upon us as citizens of this country. All of us have to take responsibility of that. And we cannot, lastly, if we do not vote, we cannot blame anyone when government goes down. But we are praying as a church. This government is going to make it. As Judge said, this is a beautiful country. Our counterparts, our African continent, are looking upon us. They believe in us. So leaders, we're asking you to make a good deal of it, to make us proud. Nkosi Africa. God bless our Africa. Thank you.
Thanks for that wonderful message, Lydia. We had Daud Rapalalane on the program from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. He unfortunately couldn't make it, but we want to extend thanks to the Kathrada Foundation for having the largest number of observers within the Election Watch program, and that's close to 200 young people, primarily from the south of Joburg. So, and they come from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation youth clubs. So thank you so much to them. Gareth Newham from the Institute for Security Studies, over to you.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. The Institute for Security Studies is an independent Pan-African organization that works in partnership to promote human security and human rights and democracy across the continent as a foundation for prosperity for the future of Africa. In South Africa, for the last 30 years, we've worked to promote constitutional democracy based on human rights and stability, and we therefore fully support the Defend Our Democracy campaign and this Election Watch initiative. We also have colleagues that are part of the election observers in this election. Our contribution is to really track violence, do research into the causes of violence and crime across the country so you have better understanding of how to advance better policies and practices that will reduce and prevent violence in our country. And this experience has left us with no doubt that a vast majority of people in South Africa do not support violence, do not behave violently, and want a peaceful and prosperous future, and support a fairer and more dignified society. So we are therefore very happy that we have not seen a lot of violence associated with this election, and we do not expect a lot of violence to be taking place in the campaign before the election dates, or the election happens. We think that this is a great campaign. We're very glad that we can be part of it, and we look forward to a peaceful voting day, and we encourage everybody to continue to maintain adhering to the Electoral Code of Conduct, to behaving responsibility, allowing people to campaign, to make your voice heard, and more importantly, on voting day, please go out and cast your ballot. That can only make our democracy stronger and more vibrant. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. We did have someone from Sentako who had confirmed. He is also unable to make it today. You know, as civil society organizations, we see the need to extend our forms of collaboration and cooperation beyond our traditional base. So we've worked closely with each other, but there is a need to go beyond that, and it means reaching out to others in other industries and sectors, such as the taxi industry, where we have common programs or goals that align. We see the need to be working together. So just thank you to them for their expression of support for today as well. We'll go to Nelson Govender from the Legal Resources Center. And just a note, the Legal Resources Center has been doing phenomenal work around the issue of ensuring that misinformation and disinformation is adequately challenged within this electoral period. But Nelson, thank you for being here, and over to you.
Thanks, Zakira. And if anybody in the media wants to get in touch with us around the disinformation and fake news that we are tracking for these elections here and in the rest of the world, please pop us an email and I will put you in touch with the right person. But for today, South Africa is at a crossroads in our 30 years of democracy. We are in that moment when the elections on 29th May is indeed a turning point in the history of our country. The constitutional rights are yet to be realized and experienced by all who live in our country. Let next week be a trigger when these rights become a reality. The LRC urges all political parties and voters to uphold the rule of law during and after the elections. It's the only way to defend and respect our Constitution and democracy. The LRC also supports and continues to support the DoD's Election Watch campaign of deploying observers to polling stations, a crucial initiative to ensure that free and fair elections are taking place, a key component of our democracy. I thank you.
Thanks for that, Nelson. We want to acknowledge in the audience Nkululeko Konko from Corruption Watch. Thank you so much for being here and extending support to this campaign as well. Prince Mbalati from Equal Education, thank you for coming through today. And again, one of the observer units sending a number of young people to participate in this campaign. Thank you to Equal Education.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone. On our side, we just want to say thanks for the opportunity to actually be part of the observers that will be there under these elections. On our part, we are playing a huge role in analyzing those manifestos, political party manifestos that are there, and in actually making sure that we identify those red flags that are under education, or actually that links to educations. So our role as we are Equal Education, we represent young non-voters, most of them, to actually have a voice as much as they can't vote, but actually you need to have a voice to say, under your manifesto as a political party, this is what we see as a red flag. Also as an opportunity for observing under this election, it will also give us a platform to say and actually give back to the young ones and say, this is something that happened under these elections, and what we need to do forward, we need to actually make sure that the legislatures and also the political policies makers, we push them to make sure that our education, we get education that is quality and is fair for everyone to actually partake. We thank you for that opportunity to actually give observers to be part of the election. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Prince. And lastly, we have Paul Martin from Solidarity. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much, Shakira. I put my timer on, but I time myself. As Solidarity, we endorse what has been said about the love of and faith in South Africa. You know, South Africa is very proud to call itself a democracy. And we know a democracy is a government by people, but fundamentally it's based on two principles. Firstly, equal access to power by all members of society. And secondly, their enjoyment of universally recognized freedoms and rights and liberties. If people do not enjoy these universally recognized rights, freedoms, and liberties, we cannot speak of a democracy. According to our Constitution, we know the rights, freedoms, and liberties includes the values recognized in the preamble and Chapter 1 of the Constitution, such as a society based on democratic values, social justice, improvement of the quality of life of all citizens, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. And we know that the fundamental rights in the Constitution, such as human dignity, freedom of expression, including the media and press, safe and healthy environment, adequate housing, sufficient food and water, to name but a few. By definition, without the realization and the protection of these rights, freedoms, and liberties, there is no democracy. And the question is open. Is that the situation in South Africa? As Solidarity, we feel that this may be the last chance to elect a government that can ensure a real democracy for everybody in South Africa. We therefore want to implore all South African citizens to participate in the electoral process and to go out and vote. We really need a free, fair, and credible electoral process, and we implore political parties and the independent candidates to uphold the rule of law and to stick to the Electoral Code of Conduct. As Solidarity, we are committed to the promotion of our constitutional values and the rule of law, and we implore everybody involved with the elections to respect and maintain impeccable electoral integrity. Solidarity unequivocally supports the Election Watch campaign, and our thoughts and prayers will be with all the observers who will be out at voting stations on election day. I thank you.
Thank you for that, Paul, and our thanks and gratitude to the other two unions that have been supportive of this campaign, and that's FEDUSA and SAFTU. Also couldn't make it here today. We understand that people are quite rushed to get things done before elections, but thanks to them as well for their support, as well as those from the business sector who have pledged their support for this, but again couldn't send through representatives today. We're going to open up for a Q&A session. So we'll start with, if you have any questions, simply put up your hand. I think there is a roving mic. And we'll see, you are open to question anyone here. If it's defend our democracy related or, linked to the core operational elements of the campaign, we'll be able to take it. But feel free to pose questions to anyone on the panel. So we've got one there. Raymond from Biel, please go ahead.
Good morning. I just wanted to know, you said that there's 1,200 observers, and we know there's more than 23,000 voting stations. How will you guys place the observers? And was it perhaps also your plan to put an observer at every voting station to get a bigger picture of what's happening? Thank you.
Thanks. Let's get another question.
Nelly from Reuters.
Hi, I have a question for the Defend Our Democracy team, which is if you could just explain kind of in simple terms why this big observation mission is needed. As in, have there been a lot of incidents in the past and a lack of observers, or is there anything different about this election that makes you worried that there could be incidents? And also you said that across the country this year we'll have one of the biggest citizen observation missions. Why do you think that is?
Thanks for that. Let's get one more question, and then we're going to take 3, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Ofentes Timo from SABC News. I just wanted to find out, initially, when parties were registering with the IEC and they were not having their way, there were some threats of violence if maybe they don't have their way. But they have somehow resolved the issue, and some of the people apparently that were making such statements have been removed from such parties. But what is your impression so far after such actions were taken by such parties that were deemed to be a bit problematic based on the utterances they were actually making as DOD? Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask Nomasonto to take the first one. And if you'd like to touch on the second one as well. And then Reverend Moss, you can go to the third question, and I'll come in there after. But the other panelists, if you would like to come in on any of the questions, please indicate so as well.
Thank you so much. So firstly, just to explain that most of our observers will be placed where they are voting, registered to vote. Due to the IEC restrictions. But we've also have a plan to ensure that we are represented well in different provinces, hence the organizations and the mapping of organization to ensure that we're almost in all the stations provincially where we have observers. But also to note that it's not only, we also have partners who are doing similar work that we are collaborating with in terms of ensuring that we are spread proportionally in all provinces and work together to get the reports in all these voting stations. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Sonto. Reverend Moss.
That question, I believe, is the one about the violence. Yeah, I think that the court, thankfully, the Constitutional Court, thankfully ruled on the problematic nature of whether or not the former president would be able to legitimately go to Parliament as a member of Parliament, and the hope that we have is that that clears the concerns that some may have that alleged that it would be, in the case that the said party would not get a 2/3 majority, that violence should be the outcome, or at least that South Africa would be made, in a sense, to pay for that kind of eventuality. Now, Defend Our Democracy, one of our campaigns from the beginning has always been, how do we get South Africans to respect the Constitution, to respect the institutions of our democracy, to respect our courts? And this is a test case, or whether or not the ruling of the courts would be abided by. And we have a cautious optimism that that will be the case, because there was clarity which the IEC initially sought to the Constitutional Court. Now, obviously, in the worst case scenario, there might very well be some incidents. We again have a history to look back to the previous violent incidents, that the weaknesses in the security cluster were pointed out to the establishment, to government. There was a panel set out to investigate as to why it was that our intelligence services, our police services were not up to the task at the time. And we believe that those gaps were remedied, and that in that sense, even if there could be such incidents, that there would be sufficient capacity to be able to attend to those. So we are confident that there would be no such incidents with this election.
Thanks for that, Reverend Moss. I just want to add to that this morning's news was reporting that I think the party who you are referencing was recommitting to the pledge of non-violence. And that's an important indicator for us. It is important for parties to make it absolutely clear to their supporters and to their members that they are going to uphold the Electoral Code of Conduct. The issue in relation to placement of observers, no civil society organization would have been ready for this election to have all 23,000 voting stations covered. In an ideal situation, that is something that would have been preferable, and it's something that we would look at working towards for the 2026 and 2029 elections. However, our cumulative footprint, so the IEC reported several days ago that there are about 5,000 domestic observers, plus I think several international observation organizations that will be placed at different voting stations. And for us, that cumulative footprint covers a representative sample of voting stations. So through the DoD's Election Watch campaign, together with organizations such as Groundwork Collective, Democracy Development Program, the SACC, and others who have their own election observation campaigns, we are actively working with each other in the lead up to elections as well as post-elections to see where we have a footprint covered. So that work is still underway. You would understand that the IEC has just given accreditation to particular individual observers under different organizations. So as soon as we finalize those numbers, we'd be able to give a better sense of our exact footprint across voting stations. For us, the simplest route was to ask people to go to their closest voting station or where they will be registered to vote, from a logistics perspective as well as a safety perspective. Oftentimes, counting goes well into the night, and we don't want people traveling far distances in order to get, and the closest and easiest way is to go to the one that's closest to your home. Reuters, your question in relation to observer missions and why we thought it's important. I think there's been a positive trend around election observation in the country since 1994, and it's something that we felt should be strengthened. As elections become more contested, there is going to be a need for a stronger presence of observers. So that would be the first reason. We are confident in the historical conduct of the IEC, its sense of professionalism that has been displayed over the years, and it's something that we hope will be maintained into this year. But at the same time, we're also very aware of certain new global trends that have begun to emerge. So if we look at the US, where in the previous election, Trump supporters came out and disputed the electoral results. Similarly, in Brazil, you had a situation with Bolsonaro, where a similar thing occurred. And as elections become more fiercely contested, we don't want to see that sort of scenario playing out in South Africa. And we feel that civil society organizations can play a more effective role, both this elections and ongoing elections, in terms of having an active presence at voting stations. and at some point having a big enough presence to cover all of the 23,000 voting stations. Okay, I want to ask, is there anything to add? Sure.
Could I just say a couple of words about observers? Elections ultimately are a matter of credibility. Do the electorate and the political parties accept the legitimacy, the correctness of the outcome? Anything that contributes to that is to be welcomed. Anything that detracts from that is to be avoided if at all possible. Even in the maturest of democracies, such as the United States, it does no harm whatsoever to have independent witnesses to the legitimacy of the process in case somewhere along the line a troublemaker wants to challenge it. Election observers have become very much the fashion over the last 20 years, and it is not because they are necessary, but because they are so extremely useful. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Justice Krichler. Let's take the second round of questions. I believe there was one here. Covered?
SABC News. You mentioned a few points about the app, and you mentioned that, the observers are going to report incidents on the actual app. What is the DoD going to do with that information? Say, for example, an election observer indicates that, they were intimidated, or ballot papers arrived late, or people were prevented from voting. What is the DoD actually going to do with that information once it's reported?
Thanks for that. Let's take another question. Are there any other questions? No? So there are 3 points to make here. The first is that the purpose or the work of an observer is limited to observing. We don't get physically involved in any incidences that play out at voting stations. So we observe, record, and then report back on it. In relation to that, if there is an incident of violence or intimidation, we've set up an internal system for an observer to very quickly alert a DoD hotline, and that is information that we'll be able to pass on to the provincial IEC heads. We've been told by the IEC that the provincial heads are the point people for any sort of irregularities, incidences of violence. And we feel that in that way, we're able to at least have a very quick way of communicating to the IEC what may be taking place at voting stations. So that's the first thing. The second thing in relation to the point about observing is ultimately we want our information to be collated, analyzed. We do have a team of data analysts that will be sitting immediately once all our reports come through, analyzing and making sense of that information, and ultimately being able to say whether the broad parameters around electoral integrity were met at the voting stations where we were based. It's always helpful to have that information at hand if there are disputes at a later stage and we have people who are on scene at a particular voting station, we're able to take up that information as well. But it is about a cumulative trend analysis at the end that we'd be able to pronounce on. And this pronouncement will likely come after the IEC has announced its electoral results. We want to specify that we are not doing a parallel vote tabulation system for this election. To do parallel vote tabulation, you require, observers at every voting station, and it's almost calculating parallel to the IEC. So for this election, that's not going to be taking place. It's really the observation of the actual processes of elections that take place. Any last questions? No? Any of the panelists? No, we covered? Okay, we'd like to thank everyone here. Members of the media, there is the hashtag Election Watch. We will try and keep you posted during the day based on information that we are receiving from observers on the ground. We're also setting up a media WhatsApp group, so if you want to receive regular information, or if you would like to feed information through us, perhaps you notice something at a voting station that you want to raise to our attention, we'd welcome that as well from you. But more than that, we want to thank you for coming out here, and once again to the South African public, go out to vote, and to all stakeholders in this election, let's respect the integrity of this election and let's uphold it. Thank you very much. Sorry, can we just get a photograph with everyone? We've got here, every observer will be getting a pack, and that includes their observation bib and other information. So we'll just take a couple of photographs with the observation bibs and our electoral integrity pledge. So there's a request from one of the photographers that we arrange this photograph outside just so there's a bit of space. The media people who want to take that photograph, is that okay with you? Okay, so all of the panelists, please make your way outside to the front doors, and we'll be able to, you can direct us from there.